So you currently chair the board of advisors for Duke Kunshan, which is the joint venture that Duke has in China. Could you talk about that role and also how Duke got to that place? Because you're a good historian of the long process.
So this is, to me, one of the best examples. I think some of the most famous words in Duke history are Terry Sanford's about outrageous ambitions. This was really a tremendous initiative, a tremendous bet. Started probably about 15 years ago when discussions were commenced with the board. And also it says something interesting about Duke because it started as an initiative of the business school. And that's where conversation started. And then it evolved that, hey, there are other opportunities within the university that could be considered. And so Peter Lang, then the provost, took the leadership. And so we sort of started with a vision that would be graduate programs. We needed partners in China that we could get to a common mindset on. And so just a tremendous amount of work in advance, selecting partners where we ended up with two great partners, university partners, Wuhan and the city of Kunshan has been just unbelievably great. We really built a university from the ground up, and I mean literally, there was nothing there. The first time I went to the site, it was a cleared site for construction. And Duke, designed the university, the layout of the buildings, et cetera. Had a lot of support locally, obviously, in the construction of them. And so they built it, and then they started filling it up with graduate students. Then about probably 5 or 6 years ago, we had our first undergraduate class admitted. And there's students, I think I read the other day, of something like 76 countries in the undergraduate program now. The kids are they're like Duke kids. They're just doing this in Kunshan, China. There's been a lot of interaction between Duke faculty. The students at DKU spend a semester or a year, one of the two, a semester here at Duke, which is good, I think, on both sides. When you have a business plan, you lay it out for 10 years and it never happens like you think it's going to happen because other stuff happens around it. And certainly DKU has had those issues. COVID probably could have put that school more off track than most because we're young. We have students from so many countries. There are issues of getting visas in and out. And this was a case where Duke, and kudos to President Price and the whole team here, really responded in ways, good and creative ways, to make sure that the students could get the experiences they wanted and kind of work around the COVID situation. And so it feels like to me things are going better and better there. Meanwhile, the overlay of the geopolitical situation has evolved. The relationships between China and the U.S. are not quite as friendly feeling as they were when we started this discussion 15 years ago. But I think DKU has navigated through that very well. And I think the focus at DKU is let's particularly work on topics that are of mutual interest to, or in fact, global interest, global topics for the betterment of both societies and the world. And by focusing on positive areas of interest, we can hopefully, contribute to an appropriate relationship more broadly.
And the campus that was a piece of dirt at the beginning, I think you've probably seen the second segment of, could you just describe what it looks like now?
So actually, I haven't seen the second half because I haven't been over since COVID. I'm going next month actually, and I can't wait to see the second part of it. But just the first part was an amazing and beautiful campus, and I understand that the addition really fills it out and makes it quite unique. In fact, I've visited a number of universities in China, and you go there and you go, oh, looks completely different. It feels different. And so it's in that sense, it's quite a feat. And I can't put enough emphasis how the city of Kunshan has been so supportive, including tremendously supportive financially. That could not have been built without their financial support. So it is a good example of partnerships and working together. Duke had some fairly tough demands too with regard to the faculty. All faculty appointments had to be approved by the Duke faculty. Those sorts of things, which initially sounded difficult, have worked out very well. And there's been great engagement by a number of faculty members here and certainly a lot of the senior administrators. So a good example, and the same should be said also of our Wuhan colleagues and Kunshan colleagues. It's been an interesting exercise in people working together. And it's not just the first team that did that. So now we have a different provost, we have a different leader that Duke nominates, we have a different representative from Wuhan. We have had changes in the leadership of the city. So this has so far really shown that it could withstand a lot of changes, which is good, and which is really what that part of Duke has to do if they're going to continue on their path of success, which I'm very bullish on.
Well, it sounds like Duke Kunshan has stayed true to its course despite the changes around it, and the students from China have continued to come as well. They're coming to the closest thing to a U.S. style undergraduate education that's close by anyway. But can you talk about the language spoken on campus and the goal of the school from an academic perspective?
Yeah. So the students are multilingual, so everybody can talk to each other in English. Then you have a significant portion of the students who have another native language other than English and Chinese, and then obviously about half of the students. In fact, there's a specific guideline of the maximum number of students from China, because there's the applications from Chinese students, the number is huge. So they have a fair balance. And the student, and I would say, I think every student that I've met during my visits there over the years who's not a native speaker of Chinese, they learn it there, which is, I think, a tremendous advantage for them in the future world too. But the students are in some ways like the students here, right? They're all as smart as they can be. They're doing research. They're playing sports. Seems like they're going 100 miles an hour, and they seem like they're having a great time doing it too. Build good friendships, lasting relationships. By the way, the placement of the students has been excellent for the first couple classes, many going to graduate programs at the most prestigious universities around the world. Excellent for those that want to go in the workforce, excellent placement. So the value of a DKU education is showing itself from the early days, which is important in the end if that's going to be a success.
One Rhodes Scholar, if I remember.
That's correct, yes.
So you're very confident about the future for Duke Kunshan.
I think the future is very bright. I'm conscious that there are always going to be issues, and there are some in this case that are a little bit out of our control. But let's be honest, Duke University lives in circumstances sometimes that are important to us that are out of our control, and we all did that in business. And if you have good leadership, you figure out how to adapt to that. And there's so much support. Our advisory board is some portion of generally U.S.-based CEOs and sort of comparable people from China, maybe a few more entrepreneurs. The Chinese contingent on the advisory board is so excited about the future and so excited to see an institution like this in China doing what they're doing that it tells me the base of support that we have is really, really good.
Well, you are a former CEO of General Motors and chair. When you are with those fellow CEOs, is it the power of critical thinking and the aspects of this approach to undergraduate education that appeals to them?
I think, it's more of a U.S. style education, and that's rare there. Not that there aren't, by the way, some excellent educational institutions in China. There certainly are. But I think they're attracted to that, and almost by the nature of the people that we invite to join, I think they're inclined to be thinking that this kind of initiative is, all of them think it's very important for China that this succeeds. So, I think it gives some view that this focus on critical thinking, things like that is a commodity they'd like to see more of in higher education in China. One of the things I should mention is when they created the undergraduate vision for DKU, they didn't just take, oh, here's the way we structure the undergraduate programs everywhere and at Duke. Let's think about if we were starting a university today with these kind of goals, how would we structure our undergraduate education? And so they have some elements of it are actually quite unique and I would say leading edge and seem to be working very well. What that reminded me of, and you may recall back when the medical school entered into the joint venture with the University of Singapore, National University of Singapore, for a med school there, de novo, brand, and it's been unbelievably successful. And Duke is now in its third or fourth renewal of 5-year agreements to mutual support. But when that school was created, they thought about medical education and how they could do it more efficiently. And some of their ideas were so successful, they were actually exported back to medical schools in the U.S., including Duke. And then some of those prospects or concepts were actually used in undergraduate education at Duke and in other graduate fields. So I think that always is stuck in my mind as a reason why do this stuff. Some of this stuff is hard. It was hard to do Duke Kunshan. We can't fool ourselves. So why would you do that? You do it because, there's an opportunity not only to address an important global need, to expand the footprint of Duke. There's an opportunity for Duke to benefit and learn from that too. And I think the National University of Singapore Med School with Duke really that lesson really stuck in my mind. I thought that really showed that there's value in doing things differently and being willing to take a little risk.
I think you're thinking, one thing that I remember is the idea of the flipped classroom.
Exactly.
Where you study first, and then when you come together, everyone is ready for a conversation or a discussion and to question some of the things that they've read.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting to me because you remember the presentations on that, but so the student views the lecture before a class, then they come in and they have a quiz, and if there's an area where most students didn't understand right, the first effort is for other students to explain it to them. And the concept there is that students actually might learn better from other students sometime. And then, but this for the professors, this puts a lot of pressure because you don't go in with your game plan and pull out the speech or your lecture from the last 20 years. You've got to kind of be adept and if this happens, this is my contribution in the class. If this happens, So, I mean, it sort of changes the lives of some of the most important people in our university, the professors. But again, from all reports that I've heard, it's worked well. And I think, a significant majority of the professors have enjoyed the challenge. So, yeah, really, really good. But that's
a great description that you gave. I appreciate that. And at Duke Kunshan, the opportunity, as I recall, for the curriculum was to not be bound by preset departments and areas of study, but to loosen up and be interdisciplinary from the start. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it is. There's some things that in the academic concept have to be respected, but that doesn't mean you have to do everything the way you've always done it or the way you've done it for the last 50 years. So I do think it was a chance for innovation. I think that was welcomed by the faculty that was attracted there and the administrators. And I think they did a good job. And I suspect if we were talking to them today, they would be telling you, and here's what we can do to make that better down the road too.
And Duke is looking at our undergraduate curriculum once again, and we'll find out whether there's some lessons learned that end up applied to that effort.
Great. I'll watch with interest.